Imagine a time when your country was under the control of another. What would that look like? How would it change your society? Now, let's ponder over a historical chapter that significantly shaped the Indian subcontinent, the era of British rule. For close to 2 centuries, from the mid-18th century until 1947, India was under British control. This was a period of profound transformation, a time when the Indian society experienced a multitude of changes. The British, with their foreign policies and governance, left a lasting impact on the Indian society, its economy, culture, and education. The effects, both positive and negative, of this colonial rule are still visible in the modern Indian society. But how exactly did this foreign rule mold the Indian society? What were the profound changes that it brought about? These are the questions we are going to explore in this video. It's time to travel back in time and understand how British rule shaped India. The year is 1757. The Battle of Plassey marks the beginning of British rule in India. This is a year that would go down in history, a turning point that would forever change the trajectory of an entire continent. Now let's delve a bit deeper into this crucial battle. The Battle of Plassey was a decisive confrontation between the British East India Company and the Nawab of Bengal and his French allies. The British East India Company, a trading corporation, had been slowly but steadily gaining power in India. They had established trading posts and were making inroads into the political scene, but the Battle of Plassey was a game changer. It was here that Robert Clive, a British military officer, led his forces to a resounding victory. This victory didn't just give the British control of Bengal, but it also set a precedent. It showed that the East India Company was more than just a trading entity. It had the military might to conquer and control. The East India Company's role didn't stop at being conquerors. They were the de facto rulers of India, and they began shaping the country to suit their interests. They introduced new administrative systems, laws, and even started meddling in the social and religious affairs of the people. Their influence extended far and wide, from the bustling cities to the quiet rural villages. The British flag was hoisted high over forts and palaces. Their presence felt in every corner of the country. It was a new era, a period of great change, uncertainty, and adaptation. The British had come to India for trade, but they ended up staying for control. Their influence was no longer confined to the commercial realm. They had effectively become the rulers of a vast and diverse land. The year 1757 wasn't just the start of the British rule in India, it was the beginning of a new chapter in India's history. And thus began an era of foreign rule that would last for almost 200 years. A period marked by significant changes, some beneficial, others devastating, but all leaving a lasting impact on the Indian subcontinent. Under British rule, India's social structure experienced a significant transformation. This change was not incidental, but a calculated move on the part of the British to consolidate their power and control over the subcontinent. The British implemented a policy of divide and rule, exploiting the diverse cultures, languages, and religions within India. They fostered division among the various communities, sowing seeds of mistrust and antagonism that would last for generations. This policy was designed to keep the Indian populace preoccupied with internal disputes, effectively preventing them from uniting against their colonial oppressors. A significant aspect of this social restructuring was the introduction and reinforcement of the caste system. While caste distinctions were already a part of ancient Indian society, the British manipulated and solidified these divisions to their advantage. The British census of India classified people rigidly based on their caste, making it a legal and social identity. This bureaucratic endorsement gave the caste system a rigidity and permanence it did not have before, leading to increased discrimination and social inequalities. The impact of these changes was profound and far-reaching. They not only altered the dynamics of Indian society, but also influenced the self-perception of the Indian people. The divisions fostered by the British led to increased communal tensions, the repercussions of which are still felt in India today. However, the British rule also had some unintended positive effects. The oppressive nature of the British rule and the injustices inflicted on the Indian people led to the rise of a strong united national consciousness. People from different castes, communities, and regions came together to fight against the common enemy, the British. This unity in diversity became the bedrock of Indian nationalism, a legacy that continues to inspire and shape India's democratic ideals. The British rule, though oppressive, brought about a socio-cultural revolution that still echoes in India's social fabric today. The changes in the social structure under British rule, both negative and positive, have indelibly shaped the course of India's history and continue to influence its present and future. The British rule was not just about social and cultural changes, it had a profound economic impact on India. The British East India Company, which was essentially a commercial enterprise, showed no hesitation in exploiting India's wealth for its own benefit. The imposition of high land revenue was one of the primary methods of this economic exploitation. The British introduced the permanent settlement, Rayotwari and Mahalwari systems, which revolved around the concept of land ownership, an alien idea to the agrarian Indian society. These systems burdened the farmers with excessive taxes, leading to widespread rural poverty and frequent famines. Simultaneously, the Industrial Revolution in Britain led to the destruction of India's traditional handloom industry, a process known as deindustrialization. Before the British, India was a major player in the world market with its fine cotton and silk textiles. However, the British flooded the Indian markets with cheap factory-made textiles from Britain. This crippled the Indian handloom industry, leaving millions of weavers jobless. Moreover, Britain transformed India into a raw material supplier for their industries, while systematically eradicating India's own manufacturing sector. The British took raw materials from India at cheap prices and sold the finished goods back to India at exorbitant rates. This one-way flow of wealth from India to Britain, often referred to as the drain of wealth, significantly contributed to Britain's industrial growth and prosperity. On top of that, the British administration expenses in India were financed by the Indian taxpayer. The high salaries of British officials, the cost of wars fought by the British, and even the expenses of the British monarch's coronation were all paid for by the Indian public. Consequently, when the British left, they left behind an economy that was in shambles. India, once a prosperous nation, had become one of the poorest countries in the world. The agricultural sector was distressed, the manufacturing sector was virtually non-existent, and the country was drained of its wealth. The economic impact of British rule left India as one of the poorest countries in the world by the time of independence. The British rule also brought about a sea change in the Indian education system and language. Let's delve into this a bit deeper. The British introduced English education in India, and this had a profound effect on the Indian society. Prior to the British rule, education in India was primarily based on religious texts and traditional Indian knowledge systems. However, the British had a different idea. They wanted to create a class of people who were Indian in blood and color, but English in tastes, opinions, morals, and intellect. This was the idea put forth by Thomas Babington Macaulay, a British politician and historian, in his famous Minute on Indian Education in the year 1835. Macaulay believed that English was superior to all Indian languages and that Indians should be taught English to create a bridge between the rulers and the ruled. His minute led to the introduction of English as the medium of instruction in Indian schools, and the focus shifted from traditional Indian knowledge systems to Western knowledge. This move had a far-reaching impact. It led to the emergence of a new class of Indians who were well-versed in English and Western education. These people played a crucial role in the Indian struggle for independence and later in the development of the country. Fast forward to today, English has become a global language and a significant part of India's success story. It has opened doors to global opportunities for Indians and has made India one of the biggest outsourcing hubs in the world. It has also played a key role in the growth of India's IT industry and in the spread of Indian culture and ideas globally. However, it's also important to note that the introduction of English has also led to a certain degree of cultural erosion and has created a divide between the English-educated elite and the rest of the population. English language and Western education, a legacy of the British rule, have played a significant role in India's growth post-independence. The British rule in India was a period of significant transformation. It brought about changes in the social structure, leading to the abolition of certain practices, the introduction of new ones, and the reformation of the caste system. Economically, it was a double-edged sword. While it introduced modern industries and infrastructure, it also resulted in the exploitation and depletion of local resources and traditional industries. Education and language were also greatly influenced. The British introduced a Western education system and English language which have left a profound and lasting impact, shaping the intellectual landscape of India even today. In essence, the British rule was a period of intense changes that have shaped the India we know today. The social, economic, and cultural transformations that took place during this time continue to reverberate across the subcontinent. The British rule, a significant chapter in India's history, has had a lasting impact on its society, economy, and culture.